Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. La Republic has put up a well structured plan to steal from the Federal Republic of Ambazonia at various levels, from the extortion of the La Republic terrorist forces at different road junctions to their offices. La Republic since 1961 has destroyed all existing institutions in Ambazonia that existed before. Some such institutions include the Santa T Estate, the Public Works Department, the Manu Airport, and many others, which is why the interim government, led under the resilient and steadfast Dr. Sacco, carries out projects like the draft from over the weekend in order to empower the valiant ARFs, amongst other independence projects, to oust La Republic from the territories of southern Cambodia. It's been the drafting season for the last couple of weeks, and while lockdowns gain momentum, so do the drafts of every other weekend. Let's see what happened during the Federal Capital Territory draft of Saturday, amongst other reports of concern.
Here are the prime headlines for tonight. A conductivity road has been abandoned since 1961. Tonight, we will take a review of what it is as of today. According to President Sacco, that Ambazonians should choose for who they are and who they wish they were. Schools effectively resumes today in Ambazonia as scheduled other interim governments. Tonight, we will revisit the four killed in Libe Estate in Dien County. And on the African scene, the EU voices solidarity with French envoy in Niger. And we will find out tonight if United Nations General Assembly Summit coming up will look at the unity over the crisis, or will they focus more on the crisis rather than providing solutions? Now let's get the news in detail. Even the blind can see that the colonial La Republic the Cameroon government has neglected the development of Ambazonia completely since the unholy union of Ambazonia and La Republic the Cameroon in 1961. The colonial La Republic the Cameroon's government came into the union with an ulterior motive. The motive is similar to the mission of the devil according to the Holy Book, which is to steal, kill, and to destroy. This is a mission that La République du Cameroon has been meticulously carrying out in Ambazonia since 1961. La République du Cameroon has put up a well-structured plan to steal from the Federal Republic of Ambazonia at various levels, from the extortion of La République du Cameroon terrorist forces at different road junctions to the offices. La République du Cameroon, since 1961, has destroyed all existing institutions in Ambazonia that existed before. Some institutions include the Santa T Estate, the Public Works Department, the Manu Airport, and many others. Now let's begin Undaunted here tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Omi. Good evening, Ambazonians. Well, those institutions and infrastructures that La Republique have been unable to kill, it has simply destroyed. For example, the GCE board, which is today a shadow of itself. A case in point of neglect and economic wreckage of La Republique's colonial administration is the nature of the Ekondo TT Road in the southern zone. The stage of the road to 2023 is worse than when it was first made in 1961. Why has development not reached this part of the Cameroons amidst the together song that they sing? Or is it that it is a part of Amazonia that is the reason why?
Neglect and economic wreckage of the colonial administration. Ekondo Titi Road in 2023 is just as bad as it was in 1961. One can't even imagine that a road can be like this in a year like this. No rehabilitation has been any closer to the word sustainable. Circulation on the Ekondo Titi Road had been hampered, disconnecting the area from other parts of the country. This stretch leads to a place that has had their sons into positions of influence with the Bia's regime, like the current Prime Minister of La République du Cameroon, though occupying top positions with La République du Cameroon government. They are nothing but mere puppets with power of decision as they are just being used by the regime.
All the bad nature of the Kondo wrote mockery to the in-house slave Dr. Jigute as prime minister, whose position is not beneficial to those of his place of birth. In a video captured of the road, a truck is seen stuck in mud with all the tires sunk in the mud. Another passenger is equally blocked from advancing by the mud. The poor nature of the road is just adding to the suffering of the people of this area, who happens to be Ambazonians who have been devastated by the ongoing war in Ambazonia.
Look at 20 ton. A condo titi rote. Look at how people are suffering. Oh, let me zoom it closer. See, look at 20 ton. It's not like a taxi. Eh, which day this suffer go finish?
Oh, well, that question there, which day will the suffer end? It will definitely end when the interim government, led by President Sako, takes over. Now, talking about President Sako, let's take an appraisal of the speech by the president during the Fako County draft. Remember, we all drafted that particular day. Now, the president introduces the speech in a quite powerful manner that would set the tone for a passionate and determined address. He effectively captured the audience's attention and engaged their emotions at the same time. He focused on the Federal Capital Territory of Fako County, which serves as the federal capital of the Southern Cameroons, providing specific and relatable context for the audience. Highlighting La République du Cameroon's enemy forces, referring to the French connotation of French Camerooners, La République du Cameroon clarifies the opposition faced by the Southern Cameroon. Now, this helped stakeholders to revive their understanding of the conflict and the forces involved. The inclusion of Moja Moja as a criminal who will be held accountable on the platform of justice at a personal touch. And you would see the president providing a specific example of someone involved in the conflict who will face consequences. These add credibility to President Sako's determination to seek justice and hold individuals accountable on an amazing sense of diligence.
When I spoke those words into the atmosphere at the beginning of this year, I called into existence what was going to happen prophetically in our struggle. It is not easy, even for the rainmakers, to call the rain in the heart of the dry season. But that's exactly what I did. Our ARFs have a commanding presence, pushing back the genocidal scouts from La Republique to their heavily fortified barracks. The criminal vigilante leader, Moja Moja, is just a sore distraction now. They have no balls. They will soon answer present on the platform of justice in a way and time they least expected. Because of the changing ground game characterized by battleground resistance from our ARFs across Amazonia, the enemy, La République du Cameroon, will find it hard to justify their claim that normalcy has returned in our territory.
That was simply amazing. Well, at the peak of the address, the president focused on two main issues: the ongoing conflict between Ambazonians and La Republic forces, and the prohibition of a census by the La Republic colonial regime. President Sako emphasized the resistance and battle against the La Republique du Cameroon forces, accusing the forces of occupation of perpetrating atrocities on innocent Ambazonians and manipulating the truth. He highlighted the loss of innocent lives, destruction of villages, and the presence of millions of refugees as evidence of La Republique's atrocious actions. Mr. President then addressed the audience, calling for vigilance and caution during the end of the lockdown. He stressed that the policy regarding sending children to school remains unchanged and parents should evaluate the security situation before that decision. Well, I believe this is clear enough. Only you can agree. We've talked about this countless lyrics. President Sako actually expressed the interim government's objection to the La Republique's colonial regime's recruitment exercise for a census. Evidently, he views it as an intrusion during a time of war and declares it prohibited in the entire Ambazonian territory. He reaffirms the intention to conduct a census only after the war comes to an end. Let's watch.
They cowardly massacre our citizens and burn their homes to paint us as some criminals they cannot talk with. They cannot finish or wish away the innocent lives of over 50,000 Ambazonians they have slaughtered so far during this senseless genocide, and more than 500 villages, settlements burned down to ashes, thousands of political prisoners who have disappeared or are held in inhumane dungeons without trial. These are meticulously documented in certain human rights reports. The millions of our refugees scattered in foreign lands because of this La République du Cameroon engineered genocide represents a scar on the character and a slap to the conscience of the international community until they do what they are doing for Ukrainians. Also been brought to our notice that the colonial regime has launched a recruitment exercise for local personnel to carry out a census in our villages and local government areas. This is an arrogant trespass in our territory during this time of war. It may also be a pretext to track our population and target our activist fighters and their families. Therefore, such census on our endangered population by La République du Cameroon colonial genocidal authorities is prohibited in the entire territory of Amazonia. Our La République du Cameroon soldiers dressed up like ARFs continue to protect and help the population because the population is your cover and our vast intelligence network, it is time to re-escalate the firepower in our Federal Capital Territory according to our National Strategic and Security Plan.
Well, you heard it, Mr. President. We will not end without speaking into the hearts of the Ambazonian Restoration Forces of Fako County, commending them for their efforts in resisting the alleged genocidal actions of La Republic of Cameroon and reclaiming control of their territory. He emphasized the importance of Fako County in the Ambazonian cause and highlighted the determination to deny the enemy access to their federal territory. On Saturday, we got a speech that exudes patriotism and encourages the ARFs to continue their duty of defending their people and homeland. The language used portrays a sense of defiance and resilience against the perceived colonial enemy. Overall, the president wanted to motivate and unite the ARFs while acknowledging the challenges they may face.
Financial warriors and supporters of the Federal Capital Territory, once more, your presence tonight is testament of your continuous commitment to our liberation cause. All of us own our Federal Capital Territory, and we must fight to protect it or reclaim it. I call on you all to go the extra mile in supporting our brave FACO ARFs who are now fired up. Your contribution will give us a leverage to continue to steer them in the right direction and increase our influence over them. We have a vast strategy in FACO that is working. Without money, we cannot finish the work we have started. Your contribution tonight will go a long way to provide tools we need to spread our presence in FACO, defend our vulnerable people, and take back our Federal Capital Territory.
Well, it's always remarkable to hear from the President, Dr. Sako. In conclusion, President Sako also acknowledged the financial support being provided to sustain the resistance. However, there is a warning to remain vigilant as the enemy is purportedly infiltrating the ranks of the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, specifically mentioning potential saboteurs from the DDR centers. By highlighting the importance of finances and the presence of potential enemy collaborators, one could say the president seeks to emphasize the need for continued dedication and vigilance. As always, the president would express gratitude for the continuous sacrifice of the stakeholders and emphasizes making the effort for the Federal Capital Territory heard clearly. Overall, the speech for the Fako County draft effectively appeals to the stakeholders' commitment, collective ownership, and nationalistic pride. It provides a clear call to action and highlights the significance of supporting the Federal Capital Territory in the liberation journey. Moving on, something caught our attention that we indeed second to. It's an appreciation message from Ma Gilda, who had a couple of things to say about NIJO, the SOS for the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization, which I believe transcends to the entire interim government, as their diligence and relentlessness in their efforts to restore Ambazonia's statehood is certainly remarkable. Malgida wrote an epistle of gratitude commending Nijo's diligence. Well, let's read it through her heartfelt appreciation. She says, Nijo, we the Ambazonian people want to appreciate your hard work and dedication to the Ambazonian struggle and the people of Ambazonia. Every week, you prepare and host county drafts for the Ambazonian struggle. You are Ambazonian's premier financial warrior. The amount of time that you dedicate for the draft preparations and hosting every week is a lot. First, you started with the national federal draft, then the county by county draft. You're busy all year long, and all this you do for as a volunteer for this cause.
Well, she continued in her epistle of gratitude, saying, How I wish everyone could dedicate just 1/4 of the time you put into your department and work for this restoration fight. The Amazonian struggle would be much better and have a faster and successful outcome. There are a few people in the struggle with your type of dedication and drive. She says, I will not name them here, but God bless you for all the fighting for the rest of the Amazonian people. We wish you good health, strength, and continued focus in your function. She says, God bless you. She says, God bless Amazonia. Now, well, I don't think Maguda would be any more accurate than this, and it indeed just sent to the entire interim government. I mean, their diligence and relentlessness in their efforts to restore Ambazonian statehood. You can agree with us. It's highly remarkable, and we here on Undaunted appreciate every one of you making sure that this restoration to statehood becomes a success.
Well, moving on. Schools effectively resumed today in Ambazonia as scheduled by the interim government. It is high time La Republic packs out of Ambazonia, given that the interim government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia has instituted a mechanism to run the affairs of Ambazonia. The resumption of the 2023-2024 academic year in Ambazonia has come to widen the lines between Ambazonia and La Republic. There are two different countries with two different education calendars, and that would be Southern Cameroon's Amazonia and La République du Cameroon, the French Cameroons. Schools effectively resumed today, September 19th, in Amazonia following the programming of the interim government.
Today, Tuesday, September 29th, 2023, marked the official resumption of the 2023-2024 academic year in the Federal Republic of Amazonia. This is coming 2 weeks after schools resumed in neighboring La République du Cameroon. Schools didn't resume in La République du Cameroon on the 4th of September 2023. While the doors of authorized institutions were open today to welcome students who got promoted to superior classes, newcomers, as well as, repeaters. The doors of government run schools in the peripheries of Amazonia remain closed as the interim government banned all such schooling institutions in Amazonia. But for major towns that are highly militarized, the doors of some few La Republic of Cameroon run schools were half opened.
Moving on, the genocide by La République in Amazonia continues. Some Amazonians have been victims again of a crossfire between the Amazonian Restoration Forces and the enemy La République du Cameroon terrorist soldiers. It is so sad for these persons, given that the Amazonian Restoration Forces, with the mandate to protect the civilian population, before the incident have advised the population to avoid being victims of La Republic's manipulation. It is within the intelligence move by the Amazonian Restoration Forces to enforce the laws of the land that would protect the civilians. But unfortunately, the civilians were manipulated by the colonial La Republic soldiers that could not protect them and sadly were caught in this crossfire.
The number of the victims were confirmed as published on the 18th of September and signed by the in-house slave General Manager Bill Tipeo Solomon. Pamel's management confirmed that 4 people were caught on Sunday in the exchange. Amongst them are Fionn Ernest, a heavy-duty mechanic, and his son, Fionn Marcel, tire reader, and Sakwe Olga, wives of a Lobe mill worker and a retired research employee.
While it has never been a culture of the Amazonian Restoration Forces to target civilians, unlike the colonial La Republic government forces that find delight in killing civilians even in broad daylight, like the case in Ngabo. The victims of the last Sunday incident in Lobe were those who did not give listening ear to the cautions from a self-acclaimed FM focus. In a video posted on the site on Facebook Monday morning, the self-proclaimed FM focus could be seen cautioning civilians to evacuate the Lobe estate of Pomo.
Meanwhile, Pamol is a company in Indian County that specializes in the growing of palm trees, palm nuts, palm oil, and rubber. It was established in 1996. Well, from research, the workers range from 1,000 to 1,500. So it's obvious it's a very gigantic company and it generates lots of revenue. That could be a reason why La Republic to Cameroon will want it by all means. Now, how does this report connect to Pamol is what we are about to tell you. And the video that was shot at night, now that person said that the date was September 17th and that they wanted to turn the Pamol estate into a camp. He said that the enforcement of the laws of the land might result in casualties for those who chose to take sides with the enemy. Now, Pamol incident comes shortly after a series of law enforcement moves perpetrated by the Ambazonia restoration fighters across the entire Ambazonia from the Savannah, the Midlands, and the Atlantic zones during the last 2 weeks to disrupt neighboring La Republic to Cameroon's run school resumption in Ambazonia. Now, following the escalation of the crisis into armed conflict, Pamol, like several others, paying allegiance to colonial Republic to Cameroon, have not had it easy. From the Ambazonia restoration fighters fighting for the total freedom of their homeland from the cruel, barbaric, and annexationist La Republic to Cameroon genociders.
Sad news reaching Undaunted says Chumte Dennis and his wife Berta are now receiving treatment after they were attacked by sponsored Colonial La Republique Fulani militia on Sunday at Nkui Quarter in Gom village, Nwa local government area. Reports say in the course of these attacks, the male received cuts on the head, hand, and genital organs. The wife received cuts on the arm and fingers. Abandoned after the act, the villagers transported the victims to the Bafoussam Hospital in neighboring La Republique. While local government area has been the center of rivalry between herders and farmers, and this escalated since 2016 when the armed conflict in the southern Cameroons, Amazonia started. The failed La Republic government, through their colonial administrators, have been exploiting the indigenes using the Fulanese. These Fulanese and Bororos, who are in their numbers in DMC, have been causing a lot of havoc through killings, stealings, and burning of houses with the complicity of the local colonial administration. Well, on Africa, North Africa, Sudan, one of Sudan's main landmarks, a skyscraper that towered over the river Nile and headquarters of a major oil company, has been reduced to a smoldering wreck amid heavy fighting between rival military factions.
Well, the Greater Nile Petroleum Operating Company head office, a glass-sided tower topped with a coil of metal, was built during an oil boom before South Sudan declared independence in 2011 and was one of Sudan's most costly construction. Flames and smoke rose from the building in a financial district of Khartoum, close to the confluence of the Blue Niles and to areas fought over by Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces.
While in East Africa, Kenya, Sudan and DRC are among African states with hottest conflicts today, killing thousands and displacing millions of people from their homes. So here we have Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who called on African leaders in Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo to prioritize peaceful resolutions of conflict as means to entice warring factions to end violence. Gachagua spoke to an audience at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies 10th Pan-African Conference Gala Dinner in Nairobi on Monday and argued for an urgent need to also address both natural and man-made disasters that have plagued Africa. Gachagua argued the problem is mostly and could be solved if both sides sat at a table for peaceful negotiations.
And President Tinubu seeks to deepen Nigeria's ties with South Africa. President Bola Tinubu on Monday called for stronger economic and diplomatic ties with South Africa to forge a common front in tackling the continent's economic challenges. The president stated this during a bilateral discussion with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in New York ahead of the United Nations General Assembly UNGA. Tinubu asserted that Africa must have a consensus view that the hundreds of billions of dollars spent through international development finance institutions over the years must meet the specific needs of developing democracies in Africa, even if it is done with exclusive regard for their enlightened self-interest.
All right, just before we get into the main report of discussion on the African scene, let's take this video of the Kenyan deputy president calling for peace talks.
Possible, but there must be also the intention to have peace. Because at the end of the day, leadership is not about who is president, but it's about service to your people. And the people of South Sudan desperately need peace in order for them to get service that they fought for many years. And Kenya stands ready, my brother, to work with you and all your colleagues to help the people of South Sudan achieve that long-waited for objective of a strong, united, prosperous.
So for our focus on the African scene for tonight, we'll take a look at France in West Africa because the EU has voiced solidarity with the French envoy in Niger. The European Union's top diplomat, Joseph Borrell, on yesterday, September 18th, voiced solidarity with France's ambassador to Niger, who has faced intense pressure after refusing to comply with an expulsion orders from Niger's military leaders. Here's what Joseph Borrell told reporters yesterday after the bloc's foreign ministers met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
We also express again our solidarity with France over the situation of its ambassador on the ground. So full solidarity with France and full support to President Bazoum. We have been the biggest supporter of the region. The biggest supporter in terms of security, development, humanitarian aid, and we have to underline the importance that we attach to the region. We have been directly affected by the events in the Sahel as neighbors, as a partner. We insisted on the idea that we need Africa's solutions for African problems. And we stand ready to support further the African Union and ECOWAS. We also reconfirm our support to President Bazoum and praise its courage and determination. It's almost 2 months that President Bazoum is resisting without electricity, surrounded by their former guard, not willing to resign because he is the legal authority in Niger.
Well, as you hear from what he said we're still ready to support AU and ECOWAS. Bazoum is not willing to resign because he's still the leader of everything in Niger. Note, not everyone in Niger, but everything in Niger. With every passing day, France and its proxies continue to prove some conspiracy theory through, like the one that says France only fights for the leaders who are like their puppets so they can continue to use the corruption of these so called presidents to enhance French exploitation of Africa.
Well, remember that after sacking the elected government in late July, the military that seized power on the 26th of July said it was expelling Ambassador Sylvain 8. But the 48-hour deadline passed without Paris recalling him. The former colonial power then said it did not recognize the authority of the Pushits. Niger's military junta said it had revoked the French ambassador's diplomatic immunity and instructed the police to expel him. Sylvain's visa and that of his family has also been cancelled. President Emmanuel Macron said last week that the ambassador was being held hostage in the embassy, living off military rations after the military cut off deliveries of supplies.
Joseph Borrell also renewed the bloc's full solidarity with Mohamed Bazoum, the elected president who has been under house arrest with his family. The EU's top diplomat praised his courage and determination. Well, we've said it time and time again. When it comes to the battle France is fighting in Africa, it's always been about their interest putting in place their 11 agreements with their colonies and not necessarily what's good for the people of these nations.
All right, news across the globe. Let's start with G77 and the China Summit. The G77 China is a group of developing and emerging countries representing 80% of the world's population. The G77 and China leaders have demanded an immediate end to the imposition of laws and regulations with extraterritorial impact and all other forms of coercive economic measures, including unilateral sanctions against developing countries by developed and fellow developing countries. The G77 plus China is a group of developing and emerging countries representing 80% of the world's population.
Now, on World War, Russia and China's top diplomats discussed strengthening their international cooperation during a meeting in Moscow just yesterday ahead of an expected landmark visit from Russian President Vladimir Putin to Beijing in the coming weeks. The two countries will continue well coordinated work at the UN General Assembly, which opened a new session this week, and other summits and high level meetings. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told visiting Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in opening remarks.
Well, the BRICS. The BRICS alliance is advancing by putting local currencies at the forefront of global trade, not the US dollar. The newly joined members of the bloc, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, are partnering with existing members, India, China, Russia, to settle oil trade in local currencies. First and foremost, India purchased 1 million barrels of oil from the UAE and settled the transaction with the rupee. The Indian Oil Corporation initiated the payment in rupees with the UAE's national oil company.
How about politics around the world? After suspending visas for artists, France is now doing the same for students from Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, citing the closure of French consular services in the countries as making their delivery impossible.
All right, I'm moving on to the main report. We will be finding out, will the United Nations General Assembly leaders look for unity over crisis, or will they deliberate over crisis, then finding time to prefer peace? The 140 or so world leaders gathering in New York for their annual assembly have a lot in their plate. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a global cost of living crisis, a worsening climate emergency, and the disruption of new technologies such as artificial intelligence. There are disagreements internationally, not only over what is most important, but also what the remedies should be. First, people are looking for their leaders for a way out of their issues, says Antonio Guterres, who is the UN Secretary General. Yet, in the face of all these and more, geopolitical divisions are undermining the capacity to respond. Also, a new multipolar world is emerging, he says, leading to escalating tensions, fragmentations, and even worse.
Now, taking Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky will want to rally support from world leaders in New York in what will be a key test of international opinion about Russia's invasion. He will address the UN General Assembly for the first time in person before taking part in a debate at the UN Security Council. Naturally, Mr. Zelensky will urge existing allies to maintain their support despite concerns about the slow progress of his army's counteroffensive against Russian forces. But he is also expected to use the opportunity to ask for fresh backing from world leaders from countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And refused to condemn.
Well, there is an awareness in both the West and in Ukraine that there is a need to remake their argument to the so-called global summit or global South, where many countries have failed to condemn Russia's invasion, not just Russia's invasion right now, but also La Republic's invasion or killing of Ambazonian, and would prefer the war to end, even if that means Ukraine ceding territory. Western powers want to make the point that the war is not just a European security issue, but an economic crisis that affects the whole world.
Well, the problem that we see Mr. Zelensky and his Western allies face is that many leaders want the annual United Nations gathering to focus more on the climate crisis and their economic difficulties rather than the war in Europe. Then what about the war in La République du Cameroon? Who will help Southern Cameroon speak about it? The UN General Secretary, Mr. Guterres, has recognized this and is hosting summits to discuss the world's faltering efforts to reduce poverty and address climate change. Coming up next.
Oh well, coming up next is sports. But before then, think about it. This year's UN General Assembly has proven that most of the world security leaders will not be present. Why is that? Yesterday, we reported that the president of France will take charge of what is happening in his colonies. I mean, talking about Niger and talking about all of the coup that has happened. And of course, he says he will be expecting Prince Charles. Is that enough? Shouldn't he want to go to the UN Assembly to talk about what is happening in La Republic du Cameroon, to talk about what is happening in Ambazonia as well? Well, as the UN General Assembly makes its way to begin on the 22nd, we will definitely keep you updated with all of the intricacies, all of the politics that most of these world leaders would want to play behind the scene. I mean, just so you know, only one security country will be partaking in it. Is it still the UN General Assembly that we all know of? All right, we'll definitely bring you up to speed with whatever happens or whatever is new on the table. But before then, Gab Ellison will bring you the sports.
Latest world sports, football. Luis Rubiales resigns as president of Spanish Football Association over Jenny Hermoso case. Luis Rubiales has resigned as president of the Spanish Football Federation following criticism for kissing Spain forward Jenny Hermoso at the Women's World Cup final presentation ceremony. 3. said the case after Spain beat England was not consensual and she filed a legal complaint last Tuesday. Rubiales said he had submitted his resignation to Federation Acting President Pedro Rocha in a statement. "I cannot continue my work," he told Piers Morgan on his television show. The 46-year-old has also resigned from his position as vice president of UEFA's executive committee. The fallout from the case has engulfed Spanish football in recent weeks and overshadowed Spain's World Cup win, with Rubiales ignoring repeated calls to resign. On Friday, a prosecutor filed a complaint with Spain's High Court following Jamoso's testimony on Tuesday against Rubiales for sexual assault and coercion. Rubiales claimed the case was mutual and consensual, but had been provisionally suspended by football's world governing body, FIFA. After the quick suspension carried out by FIFA, plus the rest of open proceedings against me, it is evident that I will not be able to return to my position. Rubiales' statement read, "Insisting on waiting and holding on is not going to contribute to anything positive, neither to the Federation nor to Spanish football." Rubiales said he hoped his departure would boost Spain's joint bid with Morocco and Portugal to host the 2030 World Cup. He added, "I have faith in the truth and I will do everything in my power to prevail. My daughters, my family, and the people who love me have suffered the effects of excessive persecution as well as many falsehoods. But it is also true that on the street, more and more every day, the truth is prevailing." Some 81 Spain players, including all 23 World Cup winners, said they will not play for the national team again while Rubiales was in his position. World Cup winning manager Jörg Wilder, considered a close ally of Rubiales, was sacked on 5th September amid a scandal, with Monse Tomé named as his successor. Politicians, footballers, and celebrities have spoken out against Rubiales, while protesters gathered at the Federation's headquarters last month to demand his resignation. Spain's acting Labour Minister Yolanda Díaz posted on X, formerly Twitter, "The feminist country is advancing faster and faster. The transformation and improved lives is inevitable. We are with you, Jenny, and with all women." Irene Montero, Spain's equality minister, added, "It's over." Asked by Morgan whether something in particular finally led him to resign, Rubiales said he spoke to his family and listened to the advice of friends. "My father, my daughters, I spoke with them. They know it's not a question about me. And some friends very close to me said to me, 'Luis, you need to focus on you and to continue your life, because if not, you are going to damage people you love and the sport you love.'" Rubiales said, "This was a question of not only me. An attitude towards me can affect third parties that are very important. It was the intelligent thing that I had to do." Tennis. US Open 2023 results. Novak Djokovic wins 24th major by beating Daniil Medvedev. Novak Djokovic won a record equaling 24th Grand Slam singles title by outlasting Daniil Medvedev in the punishing US Open final in New York. The 36-year-old Serb won 6-3, 7-6, 7-5, 6-3, but a straight set scoreline does not tell how deep he had to dig. A comfortable opening set was followed by a brutal second which lasted 1 hour and 44 minutes. After the pair exchanged breaks early in the third, Djokovic took control to level Margaret Court's 50-year record. "It obviously means the world to me," said Djokovic, winning his 24th major. "I'm really living my childhood dream to compete at the highest level in the sport, which has given me and my family so much from difficult circumstances. I never thought I would be here, but the last couple of years, I had a shot at history. Why not grab it when it is presented?" Second seed Djokovic looked physically troubled in that grueling second set, but showed all the hallmarks of his greatness to win the 4th US Open title. Djokovic, who surpassed Rafael Nadal's record tally of 22 men's major titles earlier this year, had matched Australia's court at a second attempt after losing the Wimbledon final in July. He has won 3 of the 4 Grand Slam titles in 2023, becoming the first man to achieve this feat on 4 occasions. Now the incoming world number 1 has the chance to surpass Court at January's Australian Open, where he has already won a record 10 titles. It felt fitting that Djokovic set up championship point by winning another lengthy rally and after being made to wait to serve by shouts from the crowd, sealed victory when Medvedev hit a forehand into the net. I will definitely sign right away the paper if somebody will tell me I would win 3 out of 4 and play Wimbledon finals this year, Djokovic said. There is a little regret that I didn't win that Wimbledon final, but at the end of the day, I have so much more to be happier and content with than actually to regret something. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC. Spain forward says nothing has changed as boycotting players are called up. Jenny Hermoso says calling up players who are boycotting Spain's women's team shows nothing has changed at the country's football federation. Players have been boycotting the team since the federation's former president, Luis Rubiales, kissed Hermoso after the Women's World Cup final last month. It led to Rubiales' resignation, while manager Joe Wilder was sacked. New head coach Monse Tome has called up 15 members of World Cup winning team, but Hermoso was left out. Tome said the Pachuca forward was omitted from the upcoming Nations League fixtures to protect her, but Hermoso pointed out the inconsistencies after the federation promised a safe environment in a statement on Monday. Protect me from what and from whom? Hermoso said. After the call-ups were announced on Monday, the players published a statement stressing the boycott remains in place and expressing their regret that they were again put in a position in which we never wanted to be in, and intended to explore the potential legal implications of being called up against their wishes. Hermoso, 33, accused the federation of using manipulation to intimidate players. In a statement, Hermoso said, "We have been searching for weeks, months, even for protection from the RFEF Spanish Football Federation that never came. The people who ask us to trust them are the same ones who today disclose the list of players who have asked not to be called up. The players are certain that this is yet another strategy of division and manipulation to intimidate and threaten us with legal repercussions and economic sanctions. It is yet more irrefutable proof that shows that even today, nothing has changed." A group of 81 players boycotted the team after Rubiales kissed Hermoso following last month's final, and on Friday, 39 players said their strike would continue until further changes were made, despite Rubiales resigning. Before Thomas' squad announcement on Monday, the ROFEF had urged striking players to return to the national team. The organization previously said the players have an obligation to play if selected. Players could be fined if they refuse to turn out, and the federation could have its licenses suspended under Spain's Sports Act. Victor Francos, the head of Spain's government national sports agency, told SER radio station if the players did not show up, the government must apply the law. Hermoso also offered her support to the players who have been caught by surprise and react to another unfortunate situation caused by the people who continue to make decisions within the RFEF. "This is why we are fighting and why we are doing it this way," she added. Two-time Ballon d'Or winner Alexia Putellas was among the 15 players caught up who were part of the World Cup winning squad in Australia and New Zealand. This was the first squad announcement by Tome, who replaced Wilder, considered a close ally of Rubiales after he was sacked earlier this month. Tome, who was Wilder's assistant manager, has become the first woman to hold the position of Spain women's boss. Putellas' Barcelona teammates Mapi Leon and Patri Gujarro, who were not included in Spain's World Cup squad after signing an open letter against then-coach Wilder, were also named in the side. "It's the start of a new phase. The clock is ticking. So there is nothing behind us, and we really want to connect with these players." Swiss forward Ana Maria, who joined Atletico Madrid from Barcelona this summer, said the squad announcement was disrespectful. "This is insane. How can you threaten your own players like this? Call them to the national team when they said they want clear changes before they come back," said Ana Maria on X, formerly known as Twitter. Former Spain men's goalkeeper Iker Casillas said everything keeps getting worse in the ROFEF. On Friday, the 39 players boycotting the national team released a statement saying they would not return until further conditions were met, including reshaping certain departments within the ROFEF, adding that they did not yet feel in a safe place. The ROFEF responded by expressing its commitment to change being made to restore the functioning of the entity. The Spanish government also assured players that changes will be made and there will be a greater representation of women in the Federation. Rubiales has been banned from going within 200 meters of Hamaso, who has said the case was not consensual after the 33-year-old filed a legal complaint. Appearing in court for the first time last Friday, Rubiales denied sexually assaulting Hamaso. American football. NFL. Nick Chubb injured as Cleveland Browns lose to Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cleveland Browns star running back Nick Chubb suffered a serious knee injury during Monday's 26-22 defeat against the Pittsburgh, who plays for Zaragoza, is being monitored at a hospital in Manila. Officials saw no foul play when the incident took place Smart Araneta Coliseum in Quezon City. Ahmad has issued an apology. As a sportsman, I firsthand understand the severity of his situation, and I am deeply sorry that this happened. Ahmad said, no player should have to go through that. The 19th edition of the World Cup is being co-hosted by the Philippines, Japan, and Indonesia. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
Thank you, Gab Ellison, for that sports report. And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at the global stories.
On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you the negligence and the economic wreckage La République du Cameroon's administration has caused in the southern Cameroons. We also brought to you President Sako's remarkable speech saying that we should treat the enemy for who he is and not who we wish he was. Schools effectively resumed today in Ambazonia as scheduled by the interim government.
Tonight, we revisited the 4 killed in Lubi Estate, Indian County. And on the African scene, we told you that EU voices solidarity with French envoy in Niger. While on the foreign scene, we looked at so many things, but most importantly, we found that the United Nations Assembly may not be able to find solutions to all of the crises, as they will most importantly stay on the crisis. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of Star Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.